Hello, this is our disillusionism and each one of the areas of disillusionism which we touch. And today's issue will be frustration. And here is Florencio.
Thank you, Mookie. Hello, everyone. As you know, we are exploring through these videos Mookie Tenembaum's philosophy, his disillusionism, and in particular, his misalgic theory, a theory according to which almost every human behavior can be somehow explained in terms of avoidance or withdrawal from suffering. And we are analyzing particular kinds of suffering. We spoke about boredom, we spoke about guilt. We are going to speak today about frustration, which is a rather unique type of suffering, which we try to avoid through our behavior in everyday life. So frustration from a disillusionist point of view.
Well, this is the first of a three-part series. The first one, we will talk about frustration in general. In the second one, we will talk about what can we do to avoid getting frustrated. And the third one, we will talk about once we are frustrated, what can we do about it? But today, as I say, we talk about frustration. And what is frustration? Frustration, basically, you need to try to do something and it doesn't work. Let's say I take a nail, I try to put it inside of a piece of wood or on a table, and it doesn't go in. And I go and I try and it doesn't go in. And I get frustrated. That means my frustration here is very small. It's a very small issue. Frustration, we know it happens to us all day. And in general, it happens after we have an intention. There is little frustration when we are sleepwalking. Why? Because when we sleepwalk, we know what we're doing. There is no consciousness. It's because everything has to be automatic. Those are habits. It can happen that you may be frustration, but the feeling of frustration is stronger and it stays longer when it is something we intend to do, when we have intention. And that's, I remind everybody, it's a few minutes every day that we have intention, and of course, not all the minutes together, but here and there, we get to make a decision for a few seconds and then go back into our sleepwalk, yes, or that fast forwarding, when you fast forward a movie and you see everything going fast, that's about sleepwalking. That's how it looks, sleepwalking. So here back to frustration, I can be frustrated with many things. It could happen, as I say, with a nail, and I could be frustrated if I want to become a doctor and I fail my exams, or I don't have the money to pay for school, or some other reason that make me go to work instead of studying. There is many reasons, and all of these are frustrations. And there are big frustrations, and there are small frustrations, and there are middle frustrations. And life is full with frustrations, and it's a suffering. We suffer when we get frustration. Yes, it is a negative feeling. It's something we suffer. Some people have less tolerance for frustration. Some people have more tolerance for frustration. Yes, Florencio, you wanted to say something.
No, I was. It can be now or later, but there's a question I think I need to ask, which has to do with frustration, as you describe it, the pain, the suffering involved in whatever frustrates our intents, and something we've been discussing throughout the series of videos, which is the relationship between each particular suffering and fear. Does that apply here? Is this also a case in which what drives us is not so much frustration itself, but rather the fear of getting frustrated?
Of course, as any suffering, the biggest part of suffering is the fear of that suffering. Yes. So if I fear flying, it's not about so much flying, it's about the fear of flying. So I try not to get into a plane. And every time everybody tells me you have to take in a plane, there is a whole thing. So that feeling of fear happens, of course, with frustration. If I'm afraid of frustration, there are certain things I stop doing so I don't get frustrated. And those are the issues that we will be talking in the second video. But basically, fear will, you hear that it paralyzes you. Yes. Again, if it's a nail with the tape, probably you will overcome it quite fast. But if it is, I wanted to be a doctor, it may linger for a longer time, and it could be a terrible frustration in the war. You can have frustration to try to save somebody from death. I mean, we can get really big frustrations. That frustration is very common. It's a very common suffering, and sometimes it's misrepresented. You may think frustration as something else because it hurts not only to be frustrated, but to know that your frustration you have failed. Yes, every time you take an exam and you fail, you are frustrated. But there is a feeling of failure, and you think, no, well, that's not frustration; it's failure. No, it is frustration. And so it's very, very, very common. And the fear of frustration, as I say, the more you are tolerant to frustration, the less you will fear it. Yes, it makes sense. Yes, if you don't mind so much making a mistake, you'll try again and again and again and again. And in our society, giving up, depending on which society, is not that simple. So frustration sometimes comes because you're not allowed to give up, because that would be also a way. I give up. We'll talk about it in the other videos, but just to give you a taste of it, giving up could be frustrating, and it may create a situation in which the effect of frustration linger for a long time.
It's quite interesting. As you said, we are going to discuss our strategies to prevent and to ease frustration in 2 future videos. But one last question I want to ask you has to do with this aspect you just underlined. Of course, there has to be a goal in order for us to feel frustration after being unable to achieve it. But how does what you call the sync, how does the interaction with other individuals play in this? How many times these goals belong to us, and how many times they're just goals that come from somebody else?
Well, but then you share your frustration. Let's say your father expects from you to be a doctor, and you are not. Then there is 2 frustration: your frustration and his frustration. Yes, and they may be both the same one, and they may be different. Your father is frustrated for not having a son who is doctor, and you are frustrated because you cannot give to your father the chance to have a son as a doctor. It's not the same frustration. It's not the same feeling. But it's so common that we really don't recognize it. We give it other names. And it's really a central, especially in a society that is competitive. I mean, frustration is there. I mean, if there is a competition, think about it. The people who run in the Olympics, there are 12 or 10 runners. Only one will win. Oh, very nice! You get a silver medal, or you get a 4th place or 5th place. We all know what it means. In a football, in a football season, yes, I mean, only one team will not be frustrated. All the rest will be frustrated. So it's very, very common.
So we'll get back to it. Thank you very much.
No pleasure.
If you enjoyed the video, please like it, comment and subscribe.